lot of men grow up without a father, but not every man learns to become one in spite of that. Mancy Thompson didn't just break a cycle, he rewrote the story of what manhood means. Mancy, your chapter is all heart, man, and real. For people just getting to know you, who are you today and what matters most in this season of your life?
Who am I today? I'm a father, a husband, a friend, a neighbor, and just a downright man. I'm just a brother. You know, somebody that grew up with some challenges and did my best to overcome them, and now I'm here.
That's a good way to be.
Yeah.
That's a good way to be. If I can quote you for a second, your chapter is super powerful. I would like to see that chapter turned into a whole book. Are you working on that? You got an autobiography in the making? We'll talk later.
Okay.
I want to quote you. You put, I was raised without him, but I'm building with him in mind. I'm building with him in mind.
Yeah. Because I always knew who my father is, and my father has always been with me. He may not have always been physically around, but I was never without my father. And I know that's kind of hard for some people to grasp, but my father was always a strong presence in my life, even when he wasn't physically there. And so, you know, my parents separated when I was very young, but my father, you know, he was a man's man. I remember after coming home, one of the most memorable parts in my life was, and it caught my father by surprise, and why I know this was an impactful moment for him, because he realized what had happened too. I woke up, I was sleeping on my father's sofa, and I was visiting him, and I got up to this noise I heard in the kitchen. I actually thought one of my sisters had came in and was fixing my father breakfast or something. And I got up and I went into the kitchen. And for most people, this wouldn't have been a big deal. But I went into the kitchen and I seen my father standing in front of the stove. And it seemed like it was a few minutes. And he looked and he saw me and he was like, I can cook. But in that moment, he realized that he was showing me something that he had never shown me in 50 plus years of my living. I had never seen my father standing in front of a stove doing anything, unless he was like digging in the pot to get something to eat. But I had never seen my father cook anything. And so it was kind of comical. We laughed later about it, but that was one of my aha moments. I was floored. It was like, wow, I had never seen him cook anything. I was like, wow, my dad, he never did that. You know.
I'm gonna let that one marinate for a second.
Yeah, my dad, he was a man's man. That wasn't things he did, you know. He worked hard and he played hard. That's why he had so many children. That's what he did.
People assume that if a man grows up without a dad, that he'll repeat the pattern. What did you crave growing up that you had to teach yourself?
What did I crave growing up that I had to teach myself? I think the one thing that I craved growing up that I had to teach myself, it wasn't until later, and this was during my incarceration, that it was okay to be alone. Because I didn't really grow up that way. I grew up family. My family and I are very connected. And so that was I think the hardest part of my journey is to be and feel disconnected physically from my family. That was the hardest part for me, because I never felt, in all my travels overseas and everything, and even during the incarceration, I felt disconnected only because, unlike in the past, I knew I physically couldn't leave and get to them like I wanted, and they couldn't get to me. And that was the challenging part, because in the past, we could get to each other and we would make a way. There was always this feeling that no matter what happened, we were Thompsons and we would get to each other no matter what. And because of the situation, this wasn't an option anymore. And, I did what I did, and that wasn't going to happen. And that power, that control was taken away from me. And I didn't respond well to that. It made me angry. Someone else took my control away. Someone else had power over me that my family and I no longer had. And that upset me for a very long time. And I gave them that because of my actions. And that was very, I later processed through it because it was a selfish act. But, when you're in it, you don't think like that. You're just angry. And, so it took time to wash that out of my system and come to terms with it.
I want to ask you a seemingly simple question that probably has a thin layer with a bunch of quicksand underneath it. Okay. What does fatherhood mean to you?
Fatherhood to me is probably the most important thing in the world. I think my kids and grandkids laugh at me now because I tell them I'm the richest man in the world. And they look at me and they look at the bank account and they look at the house and say, like, Dad's lying. Don't believe him. But I can tell you today, and everybody that will ever listen to this, that I am. Not because I have money, because I have family. So when you ask, what is fatherhood? That's what it is. It's not about money. It's about family that love you and you love them. And that's what richness is. So, excuse me. Yeah, there's people that have way more money than me. But I don't count that as rich. Love, family, that makes you rich. Excuse me. Wow.
No worries at all. We're not live on Facebook or nothing. This all gets edited. Yeah, just take your time and blow it out.
Yeah. So that's what makes you rich. To take care of, to support your family, to be the best version of yourself, to learn from your mistakes and share it with them, to take your mistakes, your shortness, your setbacks, all of that, and give it to your kids in such a way that they can get something from it. I thought that once my kids got older, that it would be easier. It's not. It's not. I don't know where I got that crazy idea from, but it's not. And it's not because you worry no less. You worry no less. And so if you have kids, I'm going to tell you, you're going to worry no less when they're 3 years old than when they're 30 years old. You're going to worry no less. You may even worry a little bit more. And that's what being a father is. They tease me because I get to be silly. I get to play on the floor with them. And now I don't have to worry about who's listening, who cares. I don't care. I'm going to play with them. I'm going to hug them. I'm going to kiss them. I'm going to crawl on the floor with them. I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to enjoy them. That's what being a father is. I don't have to do all of those other things anymore. I'm going to enjoy them. That's what it is. So I'm good with that.
Man. Tell me about your kids.
So we have one son. So the southern part of me is we have one son, and then he's married. So when he got married, that became my daughter, and their 2 children are our grandchildren. So I have 4 kids, and so that's the beauty of it. It's so our son is a VA police officer. His wife, my daughter, is a state employee. Our grandson is he's in the academy. He's finished high school and college. He's in the academy to be a firefighter, and he wants to join. And that's why I say you're not going to worry any less. He wants to join the critical emergency response portion of it's like the SWAT portion of the fire department. And my granddaughter, who will graduate high school next month, wants to be a nurse like her great grandmother and everything. So she wants to go into the medical profession. But like I said, I get emotional when I think of them because they are my lifeblood. I never thought I would have this life, especially after all I went through. Quite honestly, I grew up in full transparency hearing that I probably wouldn't see my 18th birthday. And to be honest with you, I didn't think I would either. And then I got there and was like, damn, I made it. And then things happened. And I was like, well, 25 probably won't happen. Then that happened. And then, and life has a way of getting in the way of life. And then, the family started growing and different stuff like that. And at some point, thank God, God had a better plan for me than I did, and slowly but surely, my life started turning around. And I started making different decisions, not all at once, but I started making incremental different decisions. And I began to embrace that and like that. I found out that I'm not a horrible person. I'm not even a bad person. I just am capable of making bad decisions at various times. And I need to think through things before I make a rash decision. So with time and wisdom, I now try to apply some of that and sit down and think through things before I make a decision, especially a decision that could land me in the wrong place and everything. So that's how I live. That's what I share with my children and my grandchildren. And one of my he's a mentor. But he started out just as a regular boss of mine, older gentleman, that was the chairman of the board and owner of the company that I worked for. He told me one time, his motto was, and I adopted it. He said, he tried to make each day better than the day before. And I started believing that and doing the same thing. Each day I want to live to make it better than the day before. And that's how I want to live my life now. I don't have to have the best things. I want to, live my life totally different. And I attribute that to my parents, my neighborhood, my community, and all of that. My life is so far different than, if you just take what you see or what you read in the book, that only tells you one part of the story. So much more to all of us. Excuse me.
You want to take a second?
I'm good. So today, I wouldn't do it then even, but if I drive down the street, I was actually going to work. This was about a month and a half ago, and I was on the phone talking to my wife, and I just so happened to be driving down the street, and I couldn't tell who the person was, and I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman. I just knew it was a human being. And the weather wasn't extremely cold, but it was chilly enough for them to be dressed the way they were. But they were laying on the curb, on the sidewalk, and people were just driving by and going about their daily lives. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And the way the traffic was going, it was clear that it was only going to be a matter of time for somebody accidentally hit this person. So I have an SUV, I have a Yukon. So I deliberately parked my vehicle in a manner that was obstructing traffic in a fashion that they would have to swing around me. And they blowing their horn. I didn't care. But I got out, I put my flashers on, and as I'm getting out, I'm yelling, hey, are you all right? Loud enough to get some type of response from this person. And by then, another person walked over, saw what I was doing, and came over to this person's aid. And now we're both trying to get their attention. And finally, they became a little more responsive. And once I saw that they was responsive enough, and they started waving us off, yeah, we were, they were all right. And then I got in my vehicle and left. But I realized that I'm not going to be that person that's going to see another human being in distress and not do something. That's not me. And despite what I've gone through, that's not me. That's not the world that I'm going to live in. That's not the world I'm going to inherit. That's not the world I'm going to pass on to my children and grandchildren. No. And so that's who I am. So it may not come across in the book or anything like that, but that's who I am. That's who I am. That's what it means to be a father. That's what it means to be a husband. That's what it means to be human. That's what it means to be in community with people. And that's how I live my life today. So have I made some horrible choices? Yes. Have I did some things I deeply regret? Absolutely. But, like I say, that is behind me. I acknowledge it and I also move on, and that's where I am, so.
The future won't pay for the sins of the past.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and, the work I do informs that, I ask people, in corrections, because I work in that space, what is the purpose? And you can't punish the past. The purpose of corrections is to deter that behavior from replicating into the future. And sadly, some of them are unaware of that. And so, we try to build classrooms and things where, we begin to change the mindset so that when these men and women start to come home, they come home with a mindset that they have a future and that they can change their behavior. And that's what we there to do. I change mine. I'm sure that they can change theirs, and that's kind of where I'm at.
Man. So speaking of the now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bringing it to current. You're a mentor. You're a truth teller. You're a man of faith.
Yeah.
What's the work that you're doing now that makes you feel aligned?
The work that I'm doing now is just what you said, staying connected, sharing the truth, being my genuine self, and trying to help men and women become better versions of themselves. Because if you talk to children or young people, nobody, and even adults, if you go to someone suffering from alcohol addiction, opioid addiction, or substance use disorder, if you ask them, what did you want to be? Think back to before all of this. None of them will tell you that their childhood aspiration was to be in the condition that they are in now. They wanted to be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, or policeman, or fireman, or something like that. Nobody grew up like that, I believe. And so that's what I do now, is how do we repair the harm? We address the trauma, because there's been a lot of work to get back to and to find out why people become addicted. Why do we have certain maladaptive behaviors? And how do we get them to a different place? And some of the most promising research comes back to, you have to address the trauma. If you can address the trauma, the rest of it almost auto corrects itself. And so that's the work I'm in is, trying to help people heal, help them find that place where they feel safe, that they can begin to get help, offer that help, and then get them to that place where they can get the help they need and find their passion. That's the work I'm doing. That is what I feel my passion is. I feel I'm okay at it. I'm not gonna toot my own horn and say I'm successful. I would say I'm working at it, and I'll continue to work at it as long as God gives me life, because somebody was able to help me and say, there's more to this person than that. He's hurting, and if we can find out what that is, maybe we can get him to another place. And somebody had enough care and concern for me to help me. And I'll tell you, some of them were correctional officers. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them were correctional officers. And some of them were correctional officers that were assholes to other people. They absolutely were. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. They were literally, I'm gonna tell you, they were a-holes. Look, there was one cat, I would honestly say that this guy, for all intents and purposes, I think he might have been a racist. I'm for real. I don't know. I'm telling you, I don't know what it was about this guy. And I'm not sure if I can even say that, because I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if a racist has to dislike all people of a particular race. Because this guy, I'm serious, he has some bad character. But for whatever reason, this guy, and it wasn't just on one thing, this guy literally saved my life on two occasions, I know. 2 occasions, I know for sure. I would not be sitting here if he had not have stepped in. And he had not stepped in. And like I said, I'm to this day, don't know why he did it. And I won't share his name, but this was a jerk. This dude was an absolute jerk. But for whatever reason, he just didn't do it. He didn't do it with me. He just was like, that's Thompson, hell. And at this particular prison, I remember when I got there, I'll tell you the prison. Prison was a prison in California called Avenal. And when I got there, it was a horrible place. And they used to have this thing they used to do that they would just abuse, especially black inmates at one time. And one of these correctional officers, as I was leaving, I was being transferred out. He came up to me and said, I have something to tell you. He said, when you came here, we took bets on who was going to have the worst problems out of you. He said, and I have to tell you, you turned out to be one of the more respectful people here. He said, we literally thought we was going to have problems out of you, and we literally kind of took bets on who was going to have to take you down. He said, but you turned out to be one of the more respectful guys on the yard. And I was actually just sharing this story with one of the guys here. He said, nobody could believe that or understand it. I'm like, hey, y'all didn't cause me no problem. But the guy was a correctional officer at this facility. And like I said, he had paper on him that he was just a jerk. But for whatever reason, he just didn't do it with me. And, you know, for that reason, like I said, I didn't have problems with him, but it was just that was our life, you know, at that time. And, you know, so I began to see people and places and things differently. And slowly my environment started to kind of shift. And the people that I also associated with, I never, you know, I don't have a tattoo or anything on me during my entire time. I never got tattoos. I never ran with a crowd like that. You know, I always, even though when I got in there, I was relatively young, I never ran with the gangs or none of that. That didn't fascinate me or anything. So it wasn't that, you know, in my faith. So that's where I kind of stayed, you know, and then too, not being from there, not being really living there in Cali and everything, that made a difference too. And so the men I associated with were real men, and a lot of the brothers then, because the environment was different, a lot of them wanted more from me, and they knew what my capabilities were. So they specifically, and they were of all faiths, and gang members too, they specifically, it was crazy at times. They specifically made sure that I didn't get in certain stuff. You know, even sometimes when I wanted to, they just, the older brothers just refused to allow me, and my mindset at that time, my anger and everything, they wouldn't allow me to get in my own way. And because of that, that helped a lot, you know, and gave me a chance to later on learn some things, you know, and to mature, you know.
Man, you could have folded at any point. You could have numbed out, as they say, but you didn't. What kept you from becoming bitter? Because I've known you for a few years now, and never once have I thought, oh yeah, he's bitter. Even though he could be.
Yeah. I think what kept me from becoming bitter was family, faith, and like I say, the people in my close inner circle, those men that touched my lives, they weren't bitter. Yes, I was mad and angry, but they also poured into me, it's okay to be mad and angry, but they also was nudging me to direct that anger. And bit by bit, it started to help me to analyze, who are you really angry at? And that was the real challenge. When that revelation finally hit, that's when the change took place. Because now I can't no longer point at the prosecution. I can no longer point at all this other stuff somebody told on me. No. This is where the rubber meets the road, and you can no longer deny your culpability in all of this. You now have to own your stuff. And so that was the turning point. And when that happens, I think the bitterness goes away if it's there and you realize, no, I have to own my crap. And I made this, and I remember a good friend of mine, he and I are both very close friends now. And we write and talk on the phone all the time. And we were in a writing class in college at the time, and they still had college, and we was in Folsom. And the assignment was you had to write and seek forgiveness. And so both of my parents were still alive at the time, and his mother was still alive, and we had to write our parents to seek forgiveness, and that was one of the hardest letters I had to write. And I wrote my parents, and he helped me process through that, and older brother, and helped me understand why I had to do that and why it was the right thing to do to seek my parents' forgiveness. And I remember calling later and talking to my mother, and because she for years had blamed herself, like all parents do. And I'm like, yeah, well, it's not your fault. And to be honest with you, I'm here because I didn't listen to you. Had I listened to you, you're right, I wouldn't be here, And I finally got her to move a little bit away from that, but she left this world still, never seeing me come home, but still blaming herself to some degree, but having understood that I did take responsibility for what I had done, the things I had done that led me there. And that was relieving and everything. But my father, he also helped me understand, because we had years after I came home to sit down and talk and everything like that. And he helped me understand that, he appreciated the letter, but it was nothing I could really say because I'm the baby boy that was going to ever really make my mother feel all that much better, simply because I was the baby, and that was just not going to happen. She was going to make everybody feel bad because her baby was gone. And until she got her baby back, it was going to be hell to pay. That was just how she felt. And so he helped me understand that part too. As a parent, there was no consoling her until she got her child back.
For a young man watching this, angry, confused, maybe feeling abandoned, what are 3 steps that he can take to become the man that his father never was?
The first thing I would say is understand that he doesn't have to follow in his footsteps, in the sense that if you see that he has taken or failed to take a role that is wrong, you don't have to repeat it. You can be a better man than that. And don't be afraid to be a better man than him. 2, if he's headed in the wrong direction, stop, pause, and there's always a chance to go in the right direction. And lastly, this one I think we don't pay enough attention to, and it's in scripture. It says, get wise counsel. Get with people that is going to pour into you and not talk about you, but not tell you about doing wrong, but help you do right. If, for instance, I say I'm your friend and I tell you I have this idea that we can go do harm or do wrong to get some money, and it's fast money, I'm not your friend. If I say I'm your friend and I say, man, I have this idea, I have 2 applications. They have 1 space on this job, but we have 2 applications. We have a 50-50 chance of getting this job. Let's both go down there. One of us got to get it. That's a friend. Follow that individual and go down there and try to get that job. That's who you should be hanging with. That's the kind of people you should align yourself with, because they will help you. And it took me a long time to understand what that was like. And it's sad to say this, but I picked that up from what we call a free person, which is a person that works in a correctional facility, but they're not a correctional officer. So they're like a supervisor in like the shops or a teacher. We call teachers and the medical staff, they free people. And this was one of my supervisors in the industry plant. And he was sharing that with me. He was like, Mr. Thompson, he couldn't speak English all that well, but he, once again, another individual that just saw something in me and was like, this kid with all of this potential could do so much more if something else, if this wasn't his situation. And so he shared that with me, and it stuck with me and everything. And so that's what I would share with that young man or that young person, that, you don't have to go that route. And that's what I share with the men and women in the classroom. I had 2 young men. One was 18 and the other was 22. And they had just been sentenced. And they shared with me, their words were, we do this thing called Who I Am. And in the classroom, they stand up and they talk for 5 minutes about who they are. And the gist of it is that they realized, they said, OGs, originals, that they would rather give them a gun than give them knowledge. In other words, they realized that the older people in their community had given them weapons and drugs to sell rather than give them knowledge and information to help them. The sad reality was that they had realized this information, I'm not going to say too late, but both of them had 50 plus years to do in the system, and at such a young age. And I asked myself, what could we have done with them young men in the community if we had given them information that would have kept them from going into the system, how much more could they have benefited, how much more of a benefit they could have been to their family, themselves, their community, had we given them a job opportunity, an educational opportunity, if somebody had just poured into them. And so trying to reach young men and women before they feel the need to make those choices is where I'm at now, you know. And that's what I think we need to do, you know.
And what's the message that you're carrying into this next chapter of yours?
The message is that, one, we can do better. Hope without a plan, though, is nothing. We have to have action.
Give me that from the top. Hope. We can have hope.
We can have hope. And by hope, I mean, when we see our communities, so many of them are struggling, lack of education, lack of opportunity. We need to go back in and show them that there are other ways than the path that they've been shown. Sometimes all they see is the negativity, all they see is the homeboy on the corner, you know, with the drug sack, with the gun, with the whatever they got going on. You know, if you have a plan, if you want to be an entertainer or whatever, okay, let's think that out. There's nothing wrong with that as a career, but let's put a plan together. Because, like I say, hope without a plan is nothing. You know, everybody will tell you it's great to have an idea, but you got to have execution. And that's where it comes down to. All of those millionaires and billionaires, it didn't just happen because they had an idea. They had to execute that idea. And so we have to go back in. So the next chapter, the next iteration is helping them understand that they have to be committed to action. And what does that look like? And we can't just talk a good game. We have to get in lockstep with them and help them be committed to the action. I can't do more work in this, and I won't do more work in this than you will. What I will tell you is I have a network of resources, and I'm willing to extend those resources if you're willing to work with me hand in hand, side by side. I will work with you as tirelessly, and as long as you're willing to work, I'll be there with you, lockstep, and we'll get wherever we're trying to go together if you're willing to commit to it. And that's what I'm sharing with them, and that's what I want them. That's the message I'm carrying in, and I want them to hear and feel that they can do this, and that we can change the outcome of wherever they are right now. So that's what I want to do.
Man, how can people reach out? How do they get involved? How do they get plugged in? How do they get connected with you? Social medias, emails, websites, give us all the goods.
Our email, my email is in the book, or my contact information is in the book. Our social media, I'm on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. It's all there. There's a link at the bottom of the page. Click on it. Contact us. We will reach out. We have a social media platform. Within 24 hours, I or someone from the team will reach out, and you'll hear back from us. Everything we do is absolutely free when it comes to prison cells to PhD or prison cells to professional. Someone will reach back out, and we'll get you connected, and we will help build your story. And get you connected, get you and your family. It's a family thing. It's just not an individual thing. We can't build a community with an individual. We build a community with a team. So that's what we do.
Man. Mancy, congratulations again on the book. Thanks for sitting down with me.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I'm happy to know you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, Rick. It's a pleasure. Absolutely.